You guys are doing good out there. I'm so happy to be with you guys again. My second episode. Last week we spoke a little bit about moving forward with our dreams, not letting our dreams kind of fall by the wayside and get lost. But today I think I have an exciting topic for us to talk about. It's going to be a two-parter. So this week and next week we're basically going to be focusing on the same thing. Today I'll be describing something, but next week I'm going to be talking about how we can overcome this particular situation or these particular individuals. So I want to speak to you for just a little bit about emotional vampires. And this is not something that came out of my own mind, but the author of this book, Albert J. Bernstein, PhD. Hope you guys are able to see that. Good book for you guys to get. It's available on Amazon and I guess other places. And what he's talking about is dealing with people who drain you dry. So I hope you got a good look at that. Emotional Vampires, Albert J. Bernstein, PhD. And this is not a commercial. He gets nothing out of this. I get nothing out of this. But we have a good talk. And certainly you can enjoy yourselves in reading his book. I have. What I want to focus on, these particular individuals that come into our lives, and sometimes, be it because they have needs or be it because we have needs, we kind of become almost, not necessarily, but codependent. In other words, we begin to rely on each other to such a degree that the relying on each other becomes a negative thing. Now, emotional vampires, according to Mr. Bernstein, are individuals who I already mentioned drain you dry. In other words, they take from you your essence, your life force, your strength. They kind of run you dry. When you are around these kinds of individuals, you lose strength. You lose vitality. It's almost as if you're no longer able to function as you usually function. So I'm just going to describe, let me see, I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these types of individuals. And we are using terminology that you would find in what we call the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. But I'm not getting into so much into those things, but they're also described there for those out there who do any psychologizing or social work or mental health counseling. You're going to be very familiar with these. For others, you may not be so familiar, but when I say the word, you may quite understand it quite a bit. So first of all, one emotional vampire is the antisocial vampire. Now, antisocial in this essence is not talking about a person who avoids being around people, but actually someone who gets too close to individuals to the degree that they are heedless of social rules. These kinds of individuals, they're not concerned with safety. They constantly are seeking stimulation. They're finding the next big thing to do, the next fun thing to do, but sometimes they're dragging people alongside with them and it becomes a dangerous proposition. The antisocial vampire wants immediate gratification. This is the person that you go out on a date with and the next thing, they want to be in bed with you. Obviously not a good thing. Very, very dangerous. This antisocial individual may be kind of the roguish type. The person that comes into your life and they literally sweep you off your feet, but the next thing you know, you're back on the floor again and now you have to sweep with your own broom because they didn't do a good job in your life. You have to be very careful of this kind of individual because they don't heed, as I already mentioned, social rules. You might be enamored with the fact that they move very quickly, they are spontaneous, but after a while, that can get very tiring also. Then you have the histrionic individual. This is the dramatic friend that you have, that even though their language is dramatic, they seem to live in a scripted world where everything focuses on who they are, what's happening to them, who did something to them, the weather's bad, well, God is picking on them, whatever it is, it's all about who they are. So the histrionic or the dramatic individual, they're constantly seeking attention and approval. They need to know that you are all about them and your needs. Sorry, buddy, you can't have any around the histrionic individual. They want to look good in every way. They really focus on how they appear, but it's not just physical appearance. They're very concerned on how they speak, if they said something wrong, if their lip was turned the wrong way, or whatever it is. So they're seeking constantly to just be approved by individuals around them. They also deny that they do anything wrong. If something bad happens, it's because somebody else did something. They had nothing to do with it, although they may have been there at the moment. They constantly put on a show. And in this show, they are the star. God forbid that you get any airtime. If you're getting any airtime, you better get out the way because they're coming and the show is theirs. So the histrionic individual, they're constantly on display. They want to be seen and approved by everybody around them. Then you have one that you might be very familiar with. This is the narcissistic individual. Now, the narcissistic individual, as the word says, it's all about them. In other words, they are legends in their own minds. You might know people like that. They don't consider other people's feelings at all. It's all about what they can get, what their needs are. The focus has to be them. Now, a little differently from the histrionic or the dramatic individual is that the narcissist truly is not concerned about other people's feelings. They are very self-serving and they need to win at all costs. For the histrionic, they might lose because it might look good to lose. So in a dramatic way, they can fail and it looks wonderful. The narcissistic individual, failure is not an option. They are absolutely about themselves and you cannot get in the way of their narcissism. Then we have the obsessive compulsive. Now, the obsessive compulsive individual, what we might call at another juncture anal retentive, is addicted to what they perceive as safety. They need to know that they are in control of everything around them. They absolutely micromanage. They cannot leave things to their own devices. If they're not in control, they feel that nobody's in control. So they have a hard time relinquishing control. When things don't go their way, it's almost as if their life were over because they can't function. They lose all safety. They dislike surprises because, of course, they were not in control of the surprise, so they have a problem with that. And they have a very difficult time making decisions because they're looking at all options. And if all options don't look perfect to them, they cannot move forward. And they also have a hard time praising anybody, because since they are the ones that need to be in control of everything, of course, all praise should come to them. No one can do anything as perfectly as they can. So the obsessive compulsive, they're very difficult to deal with because in every instance, whatever you did is not going to be right in their minds. The table needs to be set in a particular way. Now, of course, we understand that if there's a wonderful activity going on, people want things in a particular way. But these individuals are, as the word says, obsessive about it. They're constantly thinking about how they're going to do it, and then they're compulsive. They need to be rearranging things the way they like them. Then we come to the final one in what we're talking about here, emotional vampires. The paranoid vampire is constantly seeking hidden meanings and deeper realities. They are not concerned with what they see. There's always something happening behind the scenes. For them, there are conspiracy theories abounding throughout history, throughout their own very lives. If people are whispering around them, obviously they're speaking about them. And so they have a hard time understanding that the world does not revolve around them. For them, they are the center of the universe. Everyone is out to get them. Everyone has a problem with them. Everyone is concerned with them. So of course, they need to know that people are all about them. They are also very suspicious and they constantly question people's motives. So if, let's say, you bought lunch for someone and they are a paranoid emotional vampire, they're going to be like, oh, that person bought me lunch. Oh, that was nice. Oh, but was that really nice? Do they want to get information from me? What are they trying to get from me? What is the motive behind them getting lunch? They cannot fathom the fact that you got them lunch simply because you want to be around them for a little while. So, in dealing with all of these emotional vampires, keep in mind, they drain you dry. These individuals, when they step into a room, it's almost like all the blood comes out of your body. It makes you tired. You could have had all the energy in the world. When they began to speak, it's almost like a vacuum came into your system and pulled all the energy out of you. Remember the names: the antisocial vampire, the histrionic vampire, the narcissistic vampire, the obsessive compulsive vampire, and the paranoid vampire. Now, it's not to say that in our lives we do not need some of these individuals. In terms of the antisocial one, who does not like a night of a good time? Let's say going on a crazy roller coaster with someone that you would not necessarily do on your own. That's pretty cool. So they don't heed the rule of safety in that particular juncture. That's pretty fun. The histrionic. Sometimes we need our dramatic friends. We want to be around people with a little bit of drama, but they take it to the extreme. You no longer want to be around them because it can even get dangerous. The narcissistic, well, sometimes they will draw attention to themselves, and that means that draws attention away from you. Well, sometimes we may need something like that. The obsessive compulsive, the person that's very concerned about details. Well, in some jobs, that is an absolute necessity. Remember, it is when these things come home to you, when it's constantly occurring, or people are doing this to you, that it becomes a major issue. And the paranoid, well, imagine a detective. Columbo, for example, he says that his wife says that he's paranoid. He's always thinking about something going on. Well, we do need paranoid detectives. If I had a bodyguard, obviously I want this person to always be looking around to see who's out to get me. So some of these individuals, generally speaking, have qualities and characteristics that may be good for us in one particular way. But when they're always like this, when they're constantly doing some of the things that I mentioned, it is a dangerous proposition. It doesn't make us feel comfortable, and we may need to run away from them. So those are the emotional vampires that we're going to be dealing with this week. Remember the book, Emotional Vampires, Albert J. Bernstein, PhD, dealing with people who drain you dry. And what we'll do next week is that we'll focus on actually dealing with these individuals. What can we do about the antisocial, the histrionic, the narcissistic, the obsessive compulsive, the paranoid in our lives? Now, of course, this is a general overview. Get the book if you want more information. And there's a lot more literature on these individuals. But the point is, you must keep yourself safe from these emotional vampires before they drain you dry. So I hope this talk was good. I hope it gave you some new information. Remember this: if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. So make sure you're standing on solid ground. I hope this finds you well, and I'll see you again next week. Remember, we're going to be speaking about emotional vampires part 2. Dealing with people who drain you dry, but we're gonna try to work out how you can avoid being drained dry by these individuals. Take care. Goodbye.